wanted to start with a big, broad career question. What is one thing about your filmmaking process that has stayed the same from following to Oppenheimer, but then also what's something about it that has evolved with the evolving, industry, the technology we have, even viewer habits?
Gosh, big questions to begin with. I mean, look, honestly, my filmmaking process is very, very similar to what I started with. It's change only in incremental ways. And, I think that's one of the things I talk to, young filmmakers about, independent filmmakers. When you're starting out, you're making a no-budget film, as I did to start. The thing you have to remember is that creative process of, what's the shot? How is that going to move the story forward? What's the next shot? That's never really going to change. And so every time you make a film, you have to just enjoy it for the experience that it is, because it really is similar. I mean, yes, there's a lot more trucks and trailers and, hundreds of crew around and everything. But you really have to keep your eye on the prize of that essential narrative progression visually and how you're going to sort of move that forwards. And so my process, it really tends to not change. So I don't have a big, video village with big monitors or anything. I'm really just there by the camera, watching the actors to eye, and then watching dailies every night. So we're still sending the film to the lab, having them print it on celluloid. We put it up on a projector, we sit there and watch it every evening. So yeah, it's a reassuringly familiar process.
Never change, please. I love talking about how a film evolves at every stage of the process, whether it's writing, filming, editing, but then also how it kind of takes on a new life when you release it out into the world. So is there any particular part of Oppenheimer that wound up becoming stronger for you than you ever could have imagined based on how people responded to it and maybe even interpreted it?
Gosh, I mean, I feel that the audience has interpreted and taken the film very much in the spirit that I intended, which is obviously a huge relief, particularly with as tricky and potentially controversial subject matter as this. It's a very serious subject matter. But the strength of the response has so far exceeded, our highest hopes for the film. I mean, to have particularly young people, 15, 16-year-olds going, dressed as Oppenheimer to the movie theater to watch the movie. These were not things we anticipated. But as far as the particular directions, I would say the film has an ambiguous response at the end. People seem very affected by it. And that started to become apparent as soon as we started screening the film for individuals, as we were working on the film. So every time I screened the film for a small number of people, there'd be very strong reactions to the end. People would feel sometimes very upset, not necessarily for specific reasons, though. It's a more generalized sense of, I suppose, despair and nihilism that is just inherent to the subject matter. So really the strength of the response, the breadth of the response has been the big shock for us.
It's such a special thing. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I was to see something that is so specific to your voice and not part of a franchise, just excelling and really having everybody out there appreciate it no matter your age, and also appreciating the filmmaking behind it too. I feel like a lot of people are being taken by this story, but they're also recognizing certain elements that we don't usually get to see, and they're appreciating it. And that's important for continuing to make movies like this, basically. I mean,
definitely. One of the things that we got a very visible response to was the theatrical presentation, the IMAX presentation in particular, using film and using film prints that went out there into the world. Those screens in particular, I mean, we broke the all-time record at Man's Chinese with the print we had there. I think, as of last weekend, we became the third highest grossing IMAX film in America, which, after Star Wars and Avatar. I mean, for a film about J. Robert Oppenheimer, it was extraordinary. But that, to me, was a response to the care and attention we were putting into the presentation of the film as well as the film. And it's just thrilling to watch young people owning movies in their own way and saying what's important to them about getting out of the house, getting to a theater and enjoying the film in a way. And it's really wonderful to see a new generation doing that.
Goes a long way. I'll preface this next question by saying it's a little unfair because I'm kind of asking you to pick a favorite, but you have an especially exceptional ensemble here. But in particular, there are so many wonderful actors who have like mere moments of screen time, yet they still manage to make their character feel like a fully fleshed out, living, breathing person.
Yeah.
Of all of those lesser known actors in those roles with less screen time, is there anyone who just really exceeded your expectations where maybe you would want to work with them on a lead role on a future film?
There's no diplomatic way to answer that question, but the ensemble is terrific, and the headline stars have rightfully had an incredible amount of attention. But there are people in the film like David Krumholtz playing Isidore Robbie, or Jack Quaid, playing Richard Feynman, who they have their moments and they move you. And it's there are so many more. There are too many to name, honestly. I'd be disappointing people by leaving them out. I already am. Everybody.
Dylan Arnold.
Dylan Arnold.
Very happy for him.
Yes. I mean, there were so many. Just, they were able to come to set knowing the characters they were playing from history. So they would come knowing more than I did about them. Josh Peck, people like that, coming in, and they were able to improvise scenes. And improvise some of the discussions, some of the arguments around the bomb. So you have not just Robert Downey Jr. and Cillian Murphy, but you've got Matthew Modine and Josh Hartnett, these guys throwing ideas around and everything. And so as a director, that's just the greatest privilege. I mean, the breadth of cast. I really should mention my casting director, John Papsadera, did a phenomenal job. I think it's one of the great casts that's ever been assembled, and I'm so glad that you're pointing out some of the smaller players behind that.
Very
Alden
much.
Ehrenreich. I'm desperately trying to come up with names. They're all incredible, though. We didn't even mention, Gary Oldman turning up playing President Truman, but there are just so many incredible
Olivia
actors.
Thirlby.
Sorry,
I'll keep
Olivia
going.
Thirlby, exactly. Olivia Thirlby getting up there and just doing all these wonderful improvisations about her character and how she would address the idea of, was it necessary to drop the bomb, after the Nazis had surrendered. That was just incredible. And the extras in that scene, a lot of them were scientists working at Los Alamos now. And so they're incredibly well educated on the history and the issues involved. And so when you would do an improvisation, everybody from the actors we've talked about to the extras would be throwing in all kinds of useful and appropriate discussion points.
I was determined to end with this question. You are one of our top tier filmmakers. I feel like there are many people out there who, just picture you sitting there, working on your next masterpiece or watching films of this caliber. But I want to know, I'm not going to call it a guilty pleasure film. I don't like that term. What is your comfort movie of choice? After a long day, what is your movie to unwind and relax with that you can watch over and over?
I mean, too many to name, really. I don't have particular films that I watch over and over on a daily basis for that kind of comfort. I look at the great spread of them. I revisit films by all of the masters. My favorites are Ridley Scott, Stanley Kubrick, things like that. But I also love romantic comedies, all kinds of films. I'm particularly interested in between films. I watch a lot of silent films. I'm a big fan of that era. Well, it takes you out of contemporary filmmaking, out of the process that you do, out of the process that your other filmmakers working today do. It gives you a completely different way of looking at the form. And, with all of the great library releases now, you have access to all of film history. And so I very much enjoy just going back and discovering things that films made in a completely different way with a completely different set of criteria. It makes you look at the medium differently.